Worshiping with you this morning, those of you who are gathered here at our campus, those of you who are worshiping online, we are thrilled that you have taken this time to worship together with others in our Hope community. You know, when you hear the word love, when we talk about the word love, it's common for us to think of it in soft terms, right? So you hear love and you think of puppies and kitty cats and heart-shaped emojis, gauzy images of a couple hand in hand walking on a beach in a sunset, sappy ballads that we play, sometimes even at church. These are representative of a kind of love, an aspect of love, but not all that love is. And so a Memorial Day weekend can be a reminder to us of other aspects of love. That love can be fierce. Love can be strong. Love can be sacrificial. You know, it's one thing to wave a flag and to sing God Bless America. It's another thing entirely to put on the uniform of our country and to put yourself at risk for our nation. So this series, we're talking about loving like Jesus. And this series is based on one verse from the Gospel of John. It's John chapter 13, verse 34, that says, and it's Jesus speaking, right? Jesus says, "A new commandment I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, you must love one another." So here is Jesus at the end of his earthly ministry, joined together just before his arrest and conviction and execution, his death, his burial, and ultimately his resurrection. And he's gathered in this upper room with his disciples, giving them, in effect, his last will and testament. And he's doing this at the most sacred time in the Jewish calendar. It's the celebration of the Passover and a Seder meal. And in that context, Jesus says something that is shocking. I don't think we can fully appreciate just how jarring this must have been when he spoke it to his disciples on that evening. "A new commandment I give to you." What's so shocking about that is that people don't give commandments. That their complete and total understanding is that only God gives commandments. People can write laws, but only God gives commandments. And man, could these guys write laws, right? God gave them 10 commandments. And around those commandments, they came up with 619 laws, right? Really good attorneys, right? So what Jesus is doing in this moment is he is introducing not just a new commandment, but a whole new covenant. The covenant that God entered into with Abraham and then Moses was coming to a close. And that covenant, which had those 10 commandments, is contained in what we understand, what we call the Old Testament. It's the Hebrew Scriptures. That was coming to a close, and Jesus is opening up God's new covenant. It's no longer a covenant based on adherence to the laws. It's a covenant based on grace that we accept through faith, that through his death on the cross, his shed blood for us, that Jesus covers the sin of Adam, and in so doing, gives us right standing before a holy God as we put our trust in him. And that new covenant has a new commandment: love like Jesus. So then, of course, it raises the question, what does it mean? What does it look like to love like Jesus? And we could talk about that forever, right? And we talk about it all the time here, I understand that. So in this series, we're just focusing on a couple of aspects of what it means to love like Jesus. And so what I want to talk about this morning is one of the ways that Jesus loved was foolishly. Jesus loved foolishly because Jesus loved the wrong people in the wrong places and at the wrong times. Jesus loved the wrong people. I mean, think about it. As you read through the Gospels, time and again, Jesus is expressing grace and mercy and acceptance and love to the wrong people. People like Zacchaeus. Now, Zacchaeus was a tax collector. And if you know anything about the scriptures, you know in first century Palestine that tax collectors were hated, not unlike today, but in a more fierce kind of way, because these tax collectors, the tax collectors who collected for Rome from the Jewish people, were Jews. And so they were viewed as traitors because they were collecting money to give to the oppressor, Rome. So they were hated for that reason, and also many of them were corrupt. And so they would take more than was required from the people in order to enrich themselves. And so they were hated. And so the fact that Jesus would speak to Zacchaeus, go to his home, man, wrong person, Jesus. Jesus loved a Samaritan woman that he met at a well. Right? Wrong religion. She was the wrong religion. Her personal life was a mess. And when Jesus first started talking to her, she was really snarky, right? If you want to see what first century snark looks like, read the woman of the well story. Mary Magdalene, a woman of questionable reputation. The list goes on and on and on of Jesus loving the wrong people. Now, it's bad enough that he did that, but you would think at least if he's going to do it, he should do it on the down low, right? Like do it quietly, do it where people don't notice and so forth, but not Jesus. Jesus loved the wrong people in wide open places where everybody got to see it. There was a woman caught in adultery. The commandment said, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." The law said, "And if you do, we'll kill you." Right? Stone you to death. And so they bring this woman out into the town square, if you will, surrounded by all of the people who have become aware of this woman's adultery. And they are loaded to kill her. They're carrying rocks and stones, and they bring her to Jesus. And Jesus loves on her. He offers her grace and compassion and mercy and turns the focus on the bloodthirsty crowd and shames them all to the point that they put down their weapons and return to their homes. Right out in the open, he loves the wrong person. Jesus loved Matthew, who, like Zacchaeus, was a tax collector, who ultimately became one of Jesus' disciples. But when Jesus called him to follow him, the first thing Matthew did was invite Jesus to his home, just like Zacchaeus did. And not quietly, to a party. Now, if you're a tax collector and all of the good people in town don't want to be around you, guess who you hang out with? Other tax collectors. And what the Bible describes as sinners. Like people who don't care about the commandments. They're not worried about the laws. They're just living their own lives and so on and so forth. These are the people who were gathered at Matthew's house when Jesus arrived. Same people who were at Zacchaeus' house when he arrived there. And the Pharisees saw it, heard about it, and were disgusted by it. Right? Wrong people, wrong place. And if all of that weren't enough, Jesus had this bad habit of healing people on the Sabbath, which was a violation of, you guessed it, the law, right? The commandment says, remember the Lord your God, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. 6 days you shall work, on the seventh day you shall rest. And so they came up with a whole bunch of laws around what work is and what rest is. And one of the things in the law about work was it is considered work to heal somebody, to tend to them in that way. And so you're not supposed to do it. But Jesus ignored that. There's a story of Jesus. He's walking through town with his disciples, and there's people out on the street and so forth, and he comes across a guy who is begging for money. It's a guy who, we're told, was born blind. Now, in their theological framework, if you were born with a physical handicap, that meant that either you sinned, which is hard to imagine as an infant, but you sinned, or your parents sinned. And so his disciples ask the question when they see this blind guy, Lord, who sinned, him or his parents? And Jesus said, neither. You're going to get to see the power of God at work because of this person. And so Jesus goes over to him and doesn't, talk to him from a distance like a respectable person would. He goes right up to him, asks him what he wants, and the guy says, I'd love to see. And so Jesus goes to the ground, and he spits on the ground, and he makes some kind of concoction with the dirt and his spit, and he comes up right at this guy's face and begins to rub this concoction into his eyes. And then sends him off to wash his face. And as he does, the man can see. And don't you know, it was on the Sabbath. The trifecta, right? Wrong guy, wrong place, wrong time. Jesus didn't care. By the standards of the world, Jesus loved this man foolishly. Jesus loved foolishly. Because it cost him. By loving the wrong people in the wrong places at the wrong times, it ruined Jesus' reputation among the religious class. It put him in a sideways position with the religious leaders, and it earned him some really powerful enemies. But he did not seem to care. The new commandment that was replacing the old law said that there are no wrong people. There is no wrong place. There is no wrong time to show the love of God to others. Check out this scripture. It's from the writings of Paul, a letter he wrote to Christ followers in the city of Ephesus. And I'm going to read it from the Message because I really like how it teased out this passage. So it's Ephesians chapter 5, verse 2. It says this: "Watch what God does, and then you do it, like children who learn proper behaviors from their parents." Mostly, what God does is love you. Keep company with Him and learn a life of love. Observe how Christ loved us. His love was not cautious, but extravagant. He didn't love in order to get something from us, but to give everything of Himself to us. Love like that. Right? I love that passage. Jesus didn't love cautiously. He loved extravagantly. Synonyms for extravagant: excessive or over the top, foolish. When we really love someone or something, it's easy, it's natural to be extravagant in the ways that we express it. It's like those guys who really love the Eagles, right? They paint their faces and their bodies in green, and they go to the stadiums, and in the middle of winter and freezing cold, they take off their coat and their shirt, and that's extravagant. Maybe fueled by alcohol, I don't know, but to love like Jesus means no wrong people, no wrong places, no wrong times. It's both extravagant and it's sacrificial. I don't know if you saw the tragic news that happened on Thursday, but 3 missionaries were killed in Haiti. Their names are Judd Montes and Davy and Natalie Lloyd. Davy and Natalie were 23 years old, had married about a year or so before. And right after their wedding, traveled to Haiti to work with Missions in Haiti Incorporated. The vision statement for this organization on their website says that they want to see the gospel of Christ make a difference in the lives of Haiti's young people. Those 3 folks knew the dangers of Haiti that they were in. All 3 of them had the opportunities to hop on a plane and fly out of Haiti back to the U.S. But their love for Jesus and the people of Haiti caused them to be, in the eyes of the world, foolish, extravagant in expressing the love of God to the wrong people, in the wrong place, and at the wrong time. But for them, out of love for Christ, they could be nowhere else. So last week in his message to us, Jason, in starting this series, read to us from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. And I want to go back to that passage, and I want to unpack it just a little bit more for you. I know that you've heard it 1,000 times, right? You've been to 1,000 weddings, you've heard it 1,000 times. But it is the best description of what Christ-like love looks like and doesn't look like. And it's worth our spending time as we try to learn to love like Jesus. All right? So let's listen to this again. It's again from the writings of Paul to the church in Corinth, the Christ followers in Corinth. And this is what he wrote. Love is patient. I'm out. Like I'm done right there, right? So let's read something else. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. So let me pause there for a second. Patient and kind. Is that me focused or is that others focused? To be patient and kind. Is that me focused or others focused? Others, right? By being patient, I am saying I'm hanging in there with you for however long it takes for you to figure it out. And kindness says, I'm going to treat you and talk to you and act towards you in ways that communicate that you matter to me and you matter to God. It's others focused. How about jealousy, boastfulness, pride, rude? Me focused or others focused? Me, 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 me. Right? It's all about me. Love doesn't behave that way. Love doesn't demand. And as I read this, it says, where it says it's a reference to love, and so I'm just going to use the word love where it says it. Love does not demand its own way. Love is not irritable. And love keeps no record of being wronged. Man, that's so good. Love keeps no record of being wronged. Aren't you glad that Jesus doesn't keep record of your wrongs? Man, forgiveness is an essential part of love. Love does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith. It is always hopeful and endures through every circumstance. It's the nature of love. So I want to offer you a challenge as you start this new week. And I'm going to encourage you to jot this down because I know what's going to happen. You're going to walk out that door and forget everything I've said, right? And the reason I know that is because I do the same thing. So you need to write it down on your phone, if that's how you do it, or on a piece of paper, however you do, notes to yourself so you don't forget. I want you to do that this week. If you're online, you don't get a pass just because you're not in the room. I see you. Put the coffee down, pick up the paper, write this down. Here's the challenge, right? For the next 7 days, every day, I want you to read those 4 verses. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 4 through 7. It'll take you about 2 minutes. And here's the other thing I want to encourage you to do. Everywhere where it says love or the reference to love, I want you to insert your name. So in other words, Jeff is patient and kind. Right? Hey, it wasn't that funny. Wow. Right? Yeah, so to do that, because here's the thing, right? This is supposed to reflect how we live our lives. This is what it means to love like Jesus. And so to put your name in and to say, man, this is difficult. These are the things I'm supposed to do. Am I doing them? These are the things I'm not supposed to be doing. Are those a part of who I am? Right? It's a great exercise. And I just really encourage you to take on that challenge. And as you go through it, I'd love to hear any experiences you have or insights that you have as you go through that over the next week. I'm going to do the same thing. So that passage then, that 1 Corinthians 13, closes with the words, those very familiar words, right? Now these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Which is lovely, but why did he say that? I mean, faith is pretty great, hope is pretty great. Why is love the greatest? Love is the greatest because it is the one of the three that is forever. It's the only one. Faith isn't forever. The Bible defines faith as believing in that which you have not seen. When we stand before Christ, we will no longer need faith. It will be right before us. We'll see him. Hope is an optimistic view of the future, knowing that what lies ahead will be good. We won't need hope when we are standing in God's presence. The one thing that will endure, the one thing that lasts forever, is love. So that's why Paul then wrote, if I could speak with the tongues of men and angels, but didn't have love, it's just a lot of noise. If I could prophesy and understand all the mysteries of God, but have not love, it's useless. If I had the faith and the power to say to a mountain, move, and it moved, but didn't have love, who cares? If I gave everything that I have to the poor and died as a martyr, but didn't have love, it's worthless. Learning to love like Jesus is how we fulfill the great commandment as part of God's new covenant with us. And the one thing that you will do here on earth that will endure forever is love others. And especially when you love the wrong people, in the wrong places, at the wrong times, out of love for Christ. Hey, would you stand with me as we close in prayer? So, Lord, thank you for the ways that you love us, because we're the wrong people. Often in the wrong places, God, and you love us all of the time, even in those times where we least deserve it. And we want to model that in the ways that we live our lives as well. And so, Lord, forgive us for the times that our lives don't represent the kind of love that you desire for us to have. Help us to love like Jesus in ways that are true and right, sacrificial, so that your light might shine through us. And now, Lord, as we go into this new week, not knowing what the future holds, but knowing that you hold our future, we go into this week filled with hope and desiring to live out your love. I pray these things in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hey, have a great week, everybody.